You know this feeling. You know this relationship is hurting you. You've known it for months, maybe years. Your friends tell you with words that keep getting more direct. Your family looks at you with that expression, that mix of compassion and disbelief. And you, at night, when everything is quiet, you tell yourself too. You hear it, that little voice, clearly. But in the morning, you stay. You know this job is suffocating you, that you spend your best hours there only to come back empty, worn down, a little less yourself each time. You know this habit is eating away at you, slowly, surely. You know that role you've been playing for years, that character you put on every morning like a suit that's 2 sizes too small, isn't you anymore. Maybe it never really was. And yet, you stay. And the world has words for that. They call it cowardice, or comfort, or fear of the unknown. They say you lack willpower, courage, ambition. They prescribe self-help books, mantras, morning routines, as if the problem was simply a lack of information or motivation. But Spinoza, a Dutch philosopher from the 17th century, excommunicated at 23 for thinking too freely. Spinoza would say you're all missing the point. He would say this has nothing to do with courage, that it's something far more fundamental, something that precedes morality, psychology, and even consciousness itself. He would say that everything that exists seeks, above all else, to keep existing, not to be happy, not to be good, not to find meaning. Before any of that, long before, there is one single movement, not to disappear. And this movement, this raw and primitive force that runs through every living being, Spinoza calls the conatus. That's what we're exploring today. And I'll warn you now, by the end of this video, you won't look at yourself quite the same way. In his masterwork, Ethics, published in 1677, Spinoza writes a sentence that I consider one of the densest and most unsettling in the entire history of philosophy. Each thing, as far as it can by its own power, strives to persevere in its being. 9 words. But let's unpack what he actually means, because this is where everything begins. Spinoza doesn't say we seek happiness. He doesn't say we seek goodness, success, love, God, or anything else our societies teach us to desire. He says that before all of that, deep beneath all of that, there is a more primitive, more visceral, more animal movement to keep being. This comes before all morality, before any idea of success or failure, before consciousness itself, before wanting anything at all. You first want to exist. And pay attention here, because this is where Spinoza gets truly interesting. Persevering in one's being doesn't just mean surviving biologically. It's not simply eat, sleep, breathe, avoid predators. It's far more subtle than that. It means maintaining a certain way of existing, an identity, a psychological balance, an internal coherence, a way of being that remains recognizable to others, of course, but above all, to yourself. The conatus is this force that makes us hold on to remaining ourselves, staying in a form of existence we recognize as our own, even when that existence is painful. Think of a tree growing on a cliff, exposed to wind, storms, the salt of the sea. It doesn't grow straight. It doesn't grow well, not by any gardener's standard. It's twisted, deformed, battered, but it grows. With everything it has, in the conditions it was given, it perseveres in its being as a tree. It's not looking for perfection. It's not looking for beauty. It's looking for continuity. And us, we're exactly the same. We maintain a relationship that hasn't nourished us in a long time, because that relationship is part of our identity, part of who we are. We hold on to a social role we've long since outgrown, because that role is an anchor, a fixed point in the uncertain flow of existence. We repeat habits we know are harmful, because they're part of our internal coherence, part of that familiar psychological landscape we call me. This isn't stupidity. This isn't weakness. This is the conatus at work. And Spinoza is almost brutally clear about this. It's not because it's good, it's because it's us. Now, here's where it gets truly uncomfortable. The conatus explains something we generally prefer not to admit to ourselves, something that self-help, with all its good intentions, often glosses over because it's too hard to hear. We prefer familiar pain to uncertain transformation. Read that again. Familiar pain to uncertain transformation. Not because we're masochistic, not because we lack intelligence or information, not even because we lack courage, even though that's the easiest and most convenient explanation, but because changing, truly changing, at depth, isn't just getting better. It's not simply moving from the suffering box to the happiness box. It means risking something far more fundamental, no longer being the same. And that, for the conatus, is a direct existential threat. Let's take concrete examples, because philosophy without examples stays stuck in the clouds. A toxic relationship, first. Everyone around you can see it's destroying you. The words get harsher, the silence is heavier, the space between you emptier by the day, not always out of blind love. But because this relationship, as painful as it is part of who you are right now. It structures your days. It gives shape to your routine. It defines part of your identity. I'm someone who loves this person. I'm someone who fights for this relationship. These definitions, even when they hurt, are anchoring points. Leaving means losing them. And even if it's painful, it's known. It's you. The transformation that comes after is unknown. Who will you be without it? Will you recognize yourself in the mirror? Will you like what you see? The conatus would rather not find out. A habit, next. Smoking, procrastinating, self-sabotaging every time success starts to feel within reach. You know, you've even tried to stop, maybe more than once. But these habits serve a precise psychological function. They're part of the interior landscape. They're elements of the coherence of self. Remove them without putting anything in their place, and you're left with a void. And the conatus, it dreads the void more than anything. And then there are the roles. The victim, the rescuer, the one who holds everything together without ever complaining, the one who doesn't need anyone. We've been playing them so long we can't quite tell anymore where the role ends and the person begins. And when someone, a therapist, a truly close friend, or a life crisis offers us a way out, something in us resists, sometimes violently. Because stepping out of the role means questioning something fundamental. Who am I if I'm no longer playing that part? Spinoza is lucid about this, almost cold in his lucidity. He doesn't romanticize the conatus. He doesn't say it's beautiful or noble or something to celebrate. He simply says, this is how it works. The conatus is not here to save us. It is not here to guide us toward a better life. It is here to be stubborn, to maintain what is, against all odds. It doesn't seek transcendence. It doesn't seek growth. It seeks continuity, even if that continuity is shaky, even if it is limited, even if it is, at its core, profoundly sad. And it's precisely because he understands this stubbornness that Spinoza invites us to stop judging ourselves, stop calling ourselves cowards when we can't seem to change, stop beating ourselves up for staying where we suffer. It's not a character flaw. It's a force, a real, powerful, deep force that is simply pointed in the wrong direction. So Spinoza completely flips the usual question. We no longer ask ourselves, who do I want to become? We ask, what am I holding on to in order to keep existing? And then, does this holding on open me up, or does it close me down? From the conatus, Spinoza builds an entire psychology of emotions. Joy, for Spinoza, is not a moral emotion. It's not, I feel good because I acted well. It is the feeling that our power of existing is growing. Sadness is the exact opposite. It's not simply, I'm sad because something bad happened. Spinozian sadness is the feeling that our power of existing is shrinking. When something in you contracts, becomes fragile, comes apart, when you feel less yourself after an interaction, after a choice, after an entire day spent playing a role that isn't yours, your being has diminished. There has been contraction. And notice something important here, something that disturbs, because it doesn't match our intuitive understanding of things. A toxic relationship can cause daily Spinozian sadness. It can contract us, shrink us, wear us down day after day, and yet the conatus can still cling to it. Because, once again, the conatus is not looking for joy. The conatus is not looking for fulfillment. The conatus is looking for continuity. And sometimes a known and stable sadness is, for it, preferable to an uncertain and transformative joy. This is where Spinoza becomes truly uncomfortable to read, because he doesn't tell us, seek joy, flee sadness. That would be too simple, too clean. He tells us something harder. First, understand what your engine is. Because if you don't understand your engine, you'll spend your life believing you're seeking happiness when you're actually seeking survival. You'll believe you're making free and conscious choices when you're actually repeating, over and over, patterns of persistence you never truly chose. And freedom, if it's possible at all, and Spinoza believes it is, doesn't begin with willpower. It begins with understanding. Understanding the engine, watching it run inside you, identifying what you're holding on to, why, and what it produces in your life. Does your conatus open you up? Does the way you persevere in your being expand you, enrich you, connect you to more life, more depth, more of yourself? Or does it close you down? Does it shrink you, isolate you, gradually cut you off from what you could be, what you could feel, what you could create? This is not a moral judgment. There is no right or wrong answer. It's an observation, an honest and courageous look at your own inner mechanics. And sometimes, just seeing that clearly, without judging yourself, without condemning yourself, is already the beginning of movement. Spinoza is not a guru. He doesn't sell a method. He doesn't promise transformation in 10 steps or lasting happiness at the end of a 30-day program. He does something far rarer and far more honest. He exposes an engine. This engine, the conatus, runs through each of us from birth to our last breath. It pushes us to persevere in our being, as it is already constituted, as we know it, as we've grown accustomed to it, even when it's painful, even when it's limited, even when it is, at times, profoundly sad. It explains why we hold on to what destroys us, because it's part of who we are. It explains why change is so frightening, because truly changing means risking, no longer recognizing ourselves. It explains why we choose familiar pain over uncertain transformation, because familiarity, even when it hurts, is a form of continuity. And continuity, for the conatus, is everything. Understanding this changes something, not in an instant, not like a sudden revelation that wipes everything clean. Philosophy doesn't work that way, but gradually it shifts the gaze we turn on ourselves. It stops the self-flagellation. It replaces "I am weak" with something more accurate and more compassionate. I am a being, striving to persevere, like everything that exists, and this effort sometimes takes forms that cost me greatly. That's human. That's universal. That's the conatus. But once we know this, once we've seen the engine running, we can finally ask the right question. Not, who do I want to be? A beautiful question, but often too abstract to actually change anything. Not, how can I be more courageous? Which presupposes the problem is a lack of courage when it is nothing of the sort. The real question, the only one that truly matters, is, what am I holding on to in order to keep existing? And does it open me up, or does it close me down? Spinoza doesn't teach a lesson. He doesn't tell us how to live. He shows us an engine. He invites us to look, inside ourselves, at what refuses to disappear, without shame, without judgment, with just enough clarity to begin to understand. And seeing your engine clearly, that is already a form of freedom.